Hi, everybody. I'm Rohit. I lead the product team at Pepper Content. Um, Excited to be part of DevCon and talk about how we actually shipped a product in 30 days. I think it was a fantastic experience, and I'm excited to share it with all of you. Hopefully, it'll be a fun story, and if not anything, you'd be able to take a few pointers back with you on how you can ship products very fast and in a very iterative way. So I'm going to dive straight in. So this is the story of shipping an AI product in 30 days. Let's dive straight in. So before I start, I just want to take a quick moment to tell you what we shipped. So we actually launched PepperType back in Jan 2021. It's an AI content generation tool that helps creators and businesses discover new content ideas and create short form content at scale and in seconds. So imagine if you could just put in a little bit about your product, a description, and say generate blog topics for it, or give me social media content for it. It can do that in seconds, and it'll give you a bunch of options to choose from. It's garnered over 100,000 users in the last year of it being live. And I think the most exciting part of it is how we've been able to iteratively build it, and in fact, ship the first version of the product within 30 days from start to finish. This is how it looks today. So if you were generating, say, social media post captions for Zoom, you would just say Zoom is a video conferencing tool, and it will create social media captions full with hashtags and everything. Great. So why did I really build this, and why did the team at Pepper get to building this? Well, first things first, content creation can be hard. You need to get the tone of the content right. The brand voice is very different from company to company. And there are just so many minute aspects of getting content creation right. We've been actually working on this for 3 years now. And let's take the example of cooking. Sometimes cooking can be hard. There are just so many things to do when you're cooking a dish. But the most hard part, which I've heard from even my mom talk about, is deciding what to cook. The similar thing is with content. Deciding what to create sometimes gets harder than it usually is. So ideas, a nudge in the right direction, goes a long way in creating the right piece of content. So this was the big idea we started with. We said, can we help businesses and creators generate content ideas instantly and also create short form content copies? And that was the big idea that we started with when we thought of, okay, this is something we should build as peppertype.ai. So if I start at the beginning, so back in 2020, this is almost the post-pandemic world. We had learned to collaborate remotely and also have fun with it. And at Pepper, we used to have a lot of these jamming sessions about technology. Some people started talking very enthusiastically about natural language generation and how it was advancing very rapidly, and how real and how human-like it had gotten with the advent of technologies like GPT. Now, OpenAI had launched something called GPT-3, which was just eerily similar to how a human would talk in the real world. And while the reviews it was receiving was terrific, I think Pepper had a great idea of how we could harness this technology for effective content creation. We realized that there's a very clear business case here for content creation companies. And we truly believe every company today is becoming a content company, it's becoming a media company. And then every person is a creator in their own sense. How are you creating topics for your blogs? How are you tweeting out on your social media channels? All of this is becoming very, very important. So for businesses, it is about as simple as how do you get topics for the blogs you're creating. For creators, it might be the headline of a web page that you're writing about. And all of this is just smaller and smaller pieces of content that need to be created over time. We actually did a pilot of talking to about 20 creators, a few businesses, and got a sense for whether they will pay for it or not. And we were blown away by the kind of response people were showing for it. PepperType had to be created, and we were sure that because we had been in the content space for almost 3 years, we were ripe for making this happen. Now, slight detour, and I'll keep taking these detours as I tell my story. It's about making sure you build the right thing is actually extremely important. And just talking to people, engaging with them is the easiest way we've figured to to actually understand if the product you're building will be worth it or not. A lot of times as product enthusiasts and engineers, it's easy to get lost in that zone of let's create this and this totally makes sense in my head. But talking to customers give you that clarity about what the first version of the product should look like. And this is what we did. I get asked this question quite a bit. Is 20 a good number? Is 100 a good number? Is 5 a good number? And a heuristic that I tend to follow is when the returns of the conversation start to diminish. Basically, this could happen that after talking to 5 users, you realize that all of the feedback you're getting is redundant, then maybe stop at 5. Sometimes that may not stop at 20. Sometimes it may take 100 customers because everybody's giving you very varying feedback. But generally between 5 and 20 users is where you start to get the right direction for the product. If you're not getting it within 20 users, then yeah, definitely talk to more. It also helps revising your pitch as you go along with it. Okay, back to the story. So the first glimpse of validation actually happened when we talked to our consumers. And I think it was almost sort of magical. Can AI really create content on its own? It does sound like magic. How does it really work? And how much am I able to tune it and make it work really? It was just a dream sort of a thing. And which is where, we looked at Einstein's first quote saying, if at first the idea is not absurd, then there is no hope for it. This was a very absurd idea. And it just seemed like if we did it, people would just come in droves to use it. And that's what we actually did. We said that we started by just creating a Slack channel saying, hey, this is something we want to build. How we will build it, when will it come alive, who's going to work on it comes later. But this seems valuable enough. And we named the channel Pepper Type and got started at it. I think most ideas today start as a Slack channel, which is pretty interesting. Again, I think the entire idea of building the first iteration of products and moving up from that was very core to us as a company. So we whipped up the most valuable product, the MVP, and visited the 20 folks that we had spoken to and got them to use it in front of us. They would actually use the tool. This was a very bare bones tool to help us understand that if we build the final version, will it even work? And some of the reactions just blew our minds. I mean, this works like a miracle. People getting it right the first time and saying that, hey, this is going to save me hours of work stuck together. We love how smart this feels. It feels unreal. Some of the positive reactions we got. The negative reactions were, hey, it's hard for me to use at first. How do I even understand how it's doing this for me? And because this was such new technology, it took people some time to wrap their heads around how this worked, which gave us this clue that we had to make our design and the user experience extremely, extremely simple and confidence evoking. People had to trust the technology to even allow it to give very human-like real results. And that was going to be a really big challenge for us. But I think a very interesting piece for us to say that this works, if done right, could give us great returns. And that MVP helped us sort of prove the validation and give us validation that this would work. Okay, the second detour. This is what is a concept that I have deeply ingrained in my product management process. It's called cupcaking. It was made popular by an intercom blog that came up about, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. But the philosophy is that in today's world, because software can be built and shipped so fast, you don't need to be doing release cycles, which are really long in timeline wise. And an analogy to this is, how do you make a cake today? So there's one version of a cake where you can actually have, you make the cake base first, you make it really big. You make the filling for the cake, and then you add the icing to it. And then you finally have your big, massive cake ready for consumption. It's going to be yummy, or it may not be yummy, or your users may love it or may not love it. But in the end, you have a large cake that's ready for consumption. Versus another approach, which is probably easier, wherein you make a very small cupcake, which has the base, the filling, and the icing all together in it. And once you validated that, hey, this cupcake is tasty, you build maybe a smaller cake out of it, and then you enlarge it to the wedding cake. It probably is a much faster way of validating how things work, um, and just makes the whole process a lot more enjoyable as well. So as you're trying out cupcakes, you're getting user feedback in real time. So you're making sure that finally, when the wedding cake comes out, you've not spent the same amount of time building the entire cake and then iterating on top of it. In fact, at our company, we almost call this process cupcaking now instead of iterating. And we totally believe in the V1, V2, V3, V4 concept because it allows us to fail fast. It's not the huge disappointment some teams get when you've built something for 3 months, you realize something was wrong from the very beginning, and then you've got to start over again. It just saves us all of that pain. So cupcaking, highly advise it. Use it in your product management journeys. Okay, back to the story. So Peppertype had to be a reality. We realized Pepper Content was the best team to make it happen. So we decided that, hey, this needs to be built out fast, and we want to keep experimenting along the way. And I say experimenting because Peppertype really was an experiment when it started. We decided that we're going to use the Pepper platform, so a lot of components could just be reused. We also kept our payment stack, so that's one less hassle for us to build. Payments can actually be a pain to build. An interesting quote that I also heard some time back was a payment gateway could actually be your first MVP. So the minimum thing is if people believe in your product, they should be paying for it. So yeah, just something I remembered right now. But anyway, a famous saying goes that Rome wasn't built in a day. And actually an addition that says, but they were laying bricks every hour. And that's the power of having a long-term vision and cupcaking. So you're laying bricks, but the vision is very clear that you're building Rome or you're building a temple that's going to stand for centuries to come. So how did we actually start working on the entire process? I'm reminded now in 2022, a little bit of the vaccine story. So while a vaccine usually takes multiple years of development, this time the COVID vaccine was developed in just about a year. And if you've seen any video of how this was done, it wasn't done by cutting corners. It wasn't because compliance wasn't followed all steps along the way, but they actually parallelized all the mutually independent tasks, tracked approvals more effectively, and the most important piece, stellarly collaborated among all the different functions which are needed in the vaccine creation. A very similar story is what we followed for Peppertype as well, on how can we build and ship a software tool properly in the minimum time possible. So what we do is we plan ahead, so all the Lego blocks can actually be contributed in parallel. So if you have a design that needs to be built, so we just build the screen. Simultaneously, another screen is being worked on by the backend engineers. Another screen is being worked on by the front-end engineers. And there's something else that's being tested along the way as well. So there is, it's not a waterfall per se, wherein people are waiting for things to get done and then they can start on their own items. But everything, since it's broken down so much, each cupcake can actually be, each person can be working on a different cupcake at any point in time. So planning ahead, I think, saves a lot of time there. It's all about sharpening the axe and not cutting down the tree really for us. That's one. The second important piece was we prioritized every review. So whether it be a pull request, a design review, or a product review, the review was always prioritized over other work, as it helped unblock other people. So if people are waiting for you to review something, you know that any extra time that you work on your own thing is blocking the other person. So prioritizing any review helps your team move a lot more faster. The third, probably the most underrated thing, is staying in sync. Small teams obviously make it easier to stay in sync. You can have a daily stand-up, you can get on a call. Slack's huddle feature is just amazing. But staying in sync and collaborating well helps avoid a lot of those minor things which end up contributing to a very big time gap in the end. So those are the three things I think that our plan was: planning ahead, contributing in cupcakes, prioritizing all reviews, and staying in sync. Sounds simple, and we actually made it work. Quick dive into the tech stack that we followed for Peptide. We used JavaScript primarily as the programming language, and we used the React.js framework for front end, while Node.js for backend. Extensively used AWS for hosting and running the application, which allowed us these quick turnaround times. We could keep deploying code as and when it was ready. We used Stripe for managing all of our subscriptions, which is a proven solution. We didn't need to tinker a lot with it. We were actually hoping we could use Razorpay, but for some compliance reasons, we were not able to use it. I think one big learning we had was building a payments platform that is agnostic to the final payment gateway becomes extremely important, because you could just swap out payment gateways when they don't work out, either because of compliance or geography or just bad timing. The other thing I think, which is again very underrated, is how experts can help you as you're trying to build something in a short period of time. Special call out to folks like Nirant, who's from Bits Pilani. He's an NLP magician, and he helped us a lot in getting the early versions out. Similarly, whenever we faced a problem, we would go out of our way and ask somebody for help. And I think the India community and the global community today is so much more closer with Twitter DMs that people are willing to help. So whenever we faced a challenge, we were more than eager to reach out to an expert who could help us find the right way for it. Again, this helps you reduce the time which would otherwise be spent researching or figuring out the right way to do. Sometimes it's important to do your own research and figure out the best path forward. But many times, asking somebody who's done it before makes your job so much easier. And we ended up doing that quite a bit at Peppertide. Great. The next bit is about getting the design right. As I'd spoken earlier in the conversation, that design was an aspect many users said we had to nail if we needed to make the process very, very seamless. The tool was generating content, which was mind-blowing on its own, but people did not have enough confidence in, is it doing it the right way? What if it generates content that is not good? What if, and AI's had problems in the past where generating content has become challenging. So we said, okay, we'll solve a lot of these problems with the right UX in place. The problem statement being, how can we generate content in seconds with as minimum inputs and with as maximum of a confidence that can come in the results that come out? After talking to a lot of users, and remember, this is all happening in parallel along with engineering development, we decided to make it a 3-step process. First is you pick a content type to write, which is it going to be a blog topic that you want to generate, or do you want to generate a social media idea or an Instagram caption? But you have to decide what are you generating. So it's one click to pick a content type you want to create. Second, tell us the name and description about what you're trying to create. So if it's a tweet, you tell us what you want the tweet to be about and who are you? What's your identity that is creating this tweet? And that was the most minimum information we could actually start with. And while people kept telling us that, why don't you also add a lot of other advanced parameters? In our experiments, we figured that the lesser the user needs to input first, the higher the moment of wow for the user. Saying in probably the 5 words I entered, I was able to get amazing content out. The third piece, can we show the content in a very simple manner, in a beautiful manner, and people can then choose and copy and save the content that they like the best. So while the entire process of content generation could be very complex behind the scenes, the design team, and kudos to them for abstracting it out to 3 very simple steps. What are you creating? Tell us a little bit about it, and here are your results. Simple. I think the journey wasn't easy. The one big hiccup that came along this entire piece was because GPT and relevant NLG technologies were becoming so prevalent, Twitter just exploded with so many use cases coming day in and day out. There were copywriting tools which could write code automatically. There was even a tool that could create designs on Figma with a simple statement. And all of these demos were so amazing. At times, it could even get disheartening for the team. You can imagine that we're building something with this new technology. We have everything in place. We are making good speed and good time as well. But then Twitter constantly has this noise about, here's another tool that can do this. Here's another tool that can do this. And these are all MVPs. And you can clearly see that. But it's just that, hey, are we going to lose the boat? Are we going to miss the bus? A lot of things constantly happening, and there was just so much noise around it. And I think at one point of time, the team was definitely feeling the pressure, saying, are we late? Should we even do this anymore? And this is something that happens a lot, especially in newer things. There's a race to get first, but there's so much noise along the way as well. So how do you keep focus was, I think, one major problem that we faced, especially as things started to get closer to the finish line, right? What we did was we just probably sat down, assessed the situation without emotions, gave ourselves a day or two to figure out what was really happening. And we probably zeroed down on two main things. Is our premise still valid? Content creation is still a problem, and the world has millions of content creators who are creating content day in and day out. So the problem statement still very clear. The second was, are we the right people to do this? Because so many others are also doing it. We realized that we had so much data around this. We had the right talent, the know-how to do it. And we'd been doing the same thing for 3 years ourselves with over 5,000 creators. So we said, okay, we're going to put our heads down and we will ship this in 15 days. So we'd spent 15 days ideating, etc. And we set a deadline saying Jan 14th is when we're going to completely launch this. It was ambitious. I think the team at one point in time was a little taken aback. But because we were having fun doing it and it seemed like a challenge for an experiment to come alive, we said, okay, let's do this. Setting a deadline, extremely important. That's a time that motivates the team towards going towards. And the final piece, right? Shipping it actually. I've saved this Slack message forever, which is press the launch trigger. And that feeling is just beautiful. How do you go out there, make your product a reality and have it available for people to try and use and test and everything? So actually we did make the deadline on 14th. We decided to hustle and we presented Peppertype to an almost clueless team. So we launched it to the entire Pepper team. We took them through the workflows, showed them the power of the tool and how it could potentially disrupt content creation itself. And after almost 30 minutes of praying to the demo gods and making sure the demo went okay, people just loved it. Business folks in the team saw massive potential in how this could make content creation so much easier for them and their clients. I think the thing that mattered to all of us the most was how many people told that it just looked beautiful. And we'd invested a lot of time in making sure the tool was very rich in experience. And that's something we got as feedback as well, which was amazing. And I think that was the moment of truth for our team to say, if we got together and if we can ship this in 15 days to a result that exhilarates that larger crowd, this is a moment for us to just take and appreciate all of us. I think fantastic feeling. I will never forget that as I recall it. And I think it was a lot of overwhelming feelings for a lot of us. The launch, once we had the demo done, we were already saying, okay, this is ready. Now it's time to polish and set it up for launch. In fact, all of the content for peppertype.ai was written by peppertype.ai as well. And we got some shout outs for the same on how good our content looked. And we were just grinning in the backside saying that, hey, all of this was written by Peppertype itself. A funny incident, we were trying to generate captions for Peppertype one time. And this is what it generated. It said, the future is here. And it says, I will write for you. Again, something I think I'm going to print and hang it up because just a beautiful way to represent what we've been saying all along. So I think the next step towards building is launching properly. So building is one thing, but if no one sees it, it's going to be a waste. How do you make sure you create the right buzz around it and you market your product properly is extremely important. And just quick about how we planned it for Peppertype. We actually announced a waitlist to see the initial response, built up enough enthusiasm about the product through very carefully planned content. So we actually devised a cohesive content calendar across all our platforms. So how would the launch go out in a very coordinated fashion is something we did. It feels like a lot of work, but if you sit with a simple Google sheet itself, it makes your job so much easier. So definitely advise you to do that. Integrated all our communication channels. So be it email, social media, WhatsApp blasts, the founders, Twitter DM, everything was taken over and said, we will coordinate this launch across all our channels very effectively. And we planned it out in different phases. So phase one is about launching the product. The phase two is about feedback coming in. Phase three is about use cases about it. We even started generating tweet copies for brands that we love, from Zomato to Apple to Durex, and how would they use the tool? And seeing that is what people really liked, seeing how this technology can really be used. And we definitely got a lot of love for it. The last bit for us and for anybody building a SaaS product would be to completely go demo crazy. Adding that personal touch of how somebody can use the product to their advantage blows away users. And I think that's what people today love as well. In fact, having a product means having the guts to go and do cold outreaches and hoping that the person agrees to see your product. So if you are confident enough in your product, just go out there and talk to people about it. I think, and then doing that at scale is what is all about launching a product properly. And yeah, I think all of our efforts bore fruit. We were number one on Product Hunt for a while. We were Product of the Day, then Product of the Week. And I think we were nominated for Product of the Year as well. So I think it was just a fantastic journey. Now that we look back, building that product within that short period of time, that momentum coming into the launch, having a good launch, then getting onto Product Hunt, then taking over G2 completely. I think it's all about that momentum that got built in the very first 15 days of us building Peppertype. And yeah, I think this is a quote by Michael Anderson that clearly represents how the entire journey has been for us. So when you launch in a rocket, you're not really flying that rocket, you're just sort of hanging on. So a lot of startups today use this thing, right? When you're getting a seat on the rocket ship, don't ask which seat. This is just another thing that comes to mind whenever we think of how the journey of Peppertype has been. So why did the team really pull it off? A big aspect of shipping fast and shipping well comes back to the team. Why did we do it? And I think we had fun doing it is the answer almost everybody would do. If all of you have seen the launch video of SpaceX Falcon rocket, and when it landed back on Earth, you'll realize the kind of exhilaration the team had to see their product come to life, to see it be successful and the world appreciating it. Not saying it's an apples to apples comparison between Peppertype and SpaceX. I'm guessing Peppertype was way, way harder to build, but I think just wanted to call out the SpaceX team as well for doing whatever they did in getting the thing right. But I think it's all about having fun doing it. And did the team have a good time building out a product, taking up the challenge, bringing something to life is what has been the most important part of the journey. Which is why the last thing about shipping fast or shipping effectively is about don't forget to have fun. How are you interspersing moments of happiness along the journey to make sure people are constantly motivated and they're enjoying the journey? It's not just about shipping that has to matter. It's also about having fun along the way. I think very akin to a trek, wherein it's not about reaching the peak because you're probably going to be there for 5 minutes and then move on to the next journey. But how the journey leading to the peak has to be interesting, exciting, and a lot of fun. So I think with this, I'll want to leave all of you. I think building Peppertype was very exciting. I think telling the story also today has been a lot of fun for me. Hope this was useful, and there is something that you can take back from our journey on how we built Peppertype. We are for sure taking a lot of things from this and using it in our product development theories going forward at Pepper. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks so much. Was wonderful setting this up. Thank you.